Hello and welcome to the Manifestor Only podcast. Today I have Brandy Jordan, a 6'2" splenic manifestor. Hello and welcome, Brandy.
Yes. Hello, Jessica. Thank you for having me. And hello, everyone who's listening.
So excited to have you today. I would love for you to introduce yourself in whatever way feels most natural.
Well, I am Brandy. I am 67 trillion vibrating particles of light in a meat suit telling a story about something. I am a mother of 4, a grandmother of 2. I am on the roof. I am building something. Who knows? As a manifestor, I don't know until it's finished. So I'm in the process of building something that is the outcome of my life's work up until now. That helps us. Well, it doesn't help anybody. Who knows what it does? But what it's going to be is is a collection of what I call my compost. It is all the tools and things that I've learned along the way to stay awake and alive and surrendered and healthy and joyous and sensual in this body.
And sensual in this body. That really stuck with me because that is definitely a vibe I'm getting off of you. It's just really that you're in tune with who you are. And that is one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on this podcast. I think the coolness of the splenic manifestor is something I'm very much drawn to as an emotional being.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, what is this thing? This thing you call spleen? I don't understand.
Right. This thing that is beyond anything that could ever guide me. It is the information that is contained in the everything that I get to surrender to and listen for. And I think that's what has helped me be. When I say sensual, it doesn't necessarily mean erotic. It means I can feel the air on my skin. It means I can smell the trees blooming outside. It means that I'm awake and present inside of the body to be able to experience the senses, that I've been gifted. And the spleen relaxing into this protection. I know that I'll stay alive if I listen to it. You, as an emotional person, you've got this depth of experience. You've got such a deep knowing of the highs and the lows and the connection and relating. And I just know I'm going to be alive or not alive.
I love that. And I think one of the biggest questions I get from splenic manifestors that come into my life, they're always so curious about how does it work as an authority. And I'm like, you can't ask me that. I
Yeah.
can give you the mechanics, I can give you the textbook, but I would love it for anybody who's listening who is splenic. Like, what's your experience with your spleen keeping you alive as your authority? Like, what does that feel like for you?
It feels like, it feels like a no. It is only a no. It is always a yes until it is a no. It is like I am in Star Wars, when he's driving his little Mandalorian. Oh, look at that. Yay.
What just happened?
I don't know. For anyone who's actually listening, maybe not watching, I just had a firework explosion behind me as I was talking about driving my Mandalorian.
That was perfect. Okay, yes, back to the Star Wars analogy.
Okay, back to this analogy as if I'm in this little craft and I'm moving 1,000,000 miles an hour and just forward 1,000,000 miles an hour. And all I know in my body is when it's nope, nope. Oh, I did it again. Nope. When I'm moving, it's go here, not there, or not that. And the only way to know, like you said, everyone is so different. Every splenic person is so different. And the only way to know, I say, is to fuck around and find out. It is the only way to know. And as a splenic being, we are hardy enough in our physicality, if it's meant for our personal mythology to experience those hardships. Most splenic people go through health challenges in their lives. I am no exception. I have a lupus diagnosis, and this is just my immune system attacking my body because I didn't listen to it. I fucked around and found out that when I don't listen to that splenic authority, that over time, it will start to entropy my body. It will start to, from the inside out, just take the energy out of the system if we don't listen. So what does it feel like for me? It feels like nervous system dysregulation.
Mm.
So shallow breath, cold hands, um, inability to have peace in the cells of my body. Um, this body, this spleen is my ally. It's a friend. It accompanies me everywhere as a confidant. And it feels like it has roots to whatever created this whole game that we play in.
Mm. Beautiful. I think, what you pointed on there is like nobody can say what it feels like for anybody else, right? You can
Nope.
get inspiration, you can read the mechanics, you can do all these things, but it's like you have to fuck around to figure it out,
You do.
and it is in hindsight. I think that's for any authority, manifestor or not. It's just like when we come to this beautiful system of human design and really start to gain awareness of like, okay, who are we through this lens and being able to actually prove it to be true, it's like the proving happens when you don't listen,
That's right.
you know?
That's And this is where it moves from intellectual to integrative, is when we actually are brave enough to move past the fear of fucking up, of doing it wrong. Uh, we get to, this is where I see in my practice, a lot of experimenters with this system get stuck, is when their conditioning doesn't allow it to go from their brain and into their body and in your body by not listening, by doing it wrong, if you will. There is no wrong, but by not following it is the only way you know for sure how to trust it. I don't care whose authority that is. I think it's everybody's.
Yeah, because it is all about trust. I mean, when I watch you from my rooftop, what I'm seeing is someone who truly is embodied in their own truth and living in that truth. And I can only imagine that didn't happen overnight,
Mm.
that it took a hot beat to get to that place of really surrendering. And so I'm wondering, like, do you have any stories of this integration versus knowledge that you would like to share, or any just tidbits of like, what does that look like and what does it look like for you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. And just like any sixth line, I have a ton of stories. And what I know is that we're all telling stories. So I keep retelling these stories over and over and over again in ways that feel more empowering each time I tell them. And this is what I know to be um, the truth of where I've come from and where I'm going. It's all dictated by how I tell these stories. And I think that's true for all of us. And so there are stories where, um, I am uh, I'm a 6'2", and if anyone knows astrology, I am a Chiron conjunct my sun. What this means, that language, what this means is that my healing is the thing that I am here to do and to be as my life's work is someone who, the story of Chiron is abandoned at birth. I was put in an orphanage at birth. Is him being ill and sick. I couldn't eat anything but distilled water and tofu until I was almost 7. My body just wouldn't take any nutrients in my body. I'm calm digestion, calm touch. And I was in an orphanage with a bunch of other children in a bed, not touched, not calm, not any of these things. And it wasn't until a beautiful woman, oh, I apologize. I'm not sure what just happened.
I couldn't see anything.
Okay, good. My entire screen went dark and you were gone.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. So, these stories have, where was I going?
Beautiful. You said it wasn't until a beautiful woman.
This beautiful woman that is designed on our trajectory. Something that I know to be true is that none of this was on accident, that I couldn't have done anything worse or better than what I did. The actual expression of my life is exactly what it was supposed to do. And my only job here is to tell those stories in an empowering way. And so this woman that was designed to be in my life found me in this orphanage and took me into a dark room and fed me food and nurtured me. She said, like an afraid dog is what it looked like. She had to come in very slowly, very slowly. Um, and so this set off began my pattern of these sensitivities in this manifestor body being something that was bad or wrong or that needed to be taken care of in some kind of way. And so my whole life was spent trying to figure out how to be in this world with everyone else. I started very young in motherhood. I have my first child at 15. I then moved forward trying to learn how to be her mother in so many different ways. I am the first one to graduate high school, let alone college, in 3 generations of my family, because I just really was trying to learn how to do this. And I thought the education system would give it to me. So I have a doctorate in metaphysical psychology, trying to understand my own mind and how to be in this world with all of these sensitivities. I have an open root, open sacral, and open solar plexus. And so there's a lot of feeling and interaction that happens in these centers in the world. And so in this trying to avoid sensitivity or trying to not be sensitive, in this fully defined ego. This is the funny joke. Ra always says uh, that the chart comes off the page when you can see the joke.
Yeah.
And the joke is this beautiful, sensitive biology with a fully defined ego, two 26s, two 51s, 21 in the fourth line, 40 in the second line. I mean, there is not a lot of things that I can't do if I wanted to, but I get to meet the world through this sensitivity. And so part of this story of being a manifestor, a splenic manifestor, was not listening to the spleen, was feeling the needs and the emotions and the energy usage of the world and knowing that I could fix it. That I could just, if they could just hear and feel and be empowered, if I can do it, you can do it. Uh, And so I spent a long time not listening to my body, but really being in the world and hijacked by these open centers and thinking that I was doing the best thing for everyone around me, when really what I was doing is catching everything on fire. Really, what I was doing was causing resistance and anger in the people around me that loved me.
Mhm.
And so you mentioned a few things. So I got to the point where I had raised my children. They had all moved out of the house. I was maybe 34 at the time. I was
Wow.
finished now. And my body got very sick and lupus took over. And it was deteriorating my brainstem and all my tissues and soft tissues and joints. My children came home to take care of me. I wasn't able to eat. I wasn't able to work. I was going into anaphylactic shock. Everything that I put in my body was rejecting. It was almost like I was reverted back to my orphanage days in this body. And so I enrolled in an assisted suicide program and I was finished. And I had been finished. I thought I knew everything there was to know. I had filled my brain and I had leveraged everything I owned to pay for this education so that I could know how to do all of this. And I knew, I knew everything there was to fucking know, but I couldn't do any of it. I couldn't be any of those things that I knew. I had in my elementary school, in my younger years, I went to every church there was to get to understand this, what all of this was available to me, what religion was. Then I went into business and I understood business. And then I went into education and I understood education, but I still couldn't do any of it. I couldn't be what I knew. And I just thought, okay, well, I guess I'm finished then. I mean, I had really given up. I felt as if it sounds like a dark little bit of a humor, but I had 4 children. I raised them. They were happy. I felt like, it was just the end of the time and I had surrendered to this death. And so I enrolled in this assisted suicide program. And part of this program was to go see Dr. Joe Dispenza. And this was before he got popular. And so I studied with him in his experiments and I got hooked up to the machines and I learned how to move the cerebral spinal fluid through my body in a way that it tapped on my pineal. I had an incredible mystical experience in which it looked like I was having a seizure for 4 minutes on the screen. But what was happening when I came back, this was in Spain. When I came home from Spain, I had an appointment with my rheumatologist, and all my numbers had changed from there was 1 lupus soldier in every 250 cells before I left, and there was 1 in every 5,500 cells when I got home. My allergies changed from 186 to 2. I had 2 allergies left in my body. I dropped 80 pounds. I stopped having to wear glasses. There were a lot of things that once I finally surrendered to this body, this ego power is so powerful, it wouldn't do it until it was almost dead. And once the ego surrendered, once this body realized that I am not here to do any of this, that I am just the watcher of the machine working through me, to be kind of cold about it, I guess. Once that happened, then this second line body took over. It was able to connect itself to the field in a way that released the pharmacology in my mind that my mind knew, but it was holding on tight, saying, well, my mind is the thing that does it. It didn't release, it didn't marry my body until after I decided it was dead and useless. We don't have to go this far. It doesn't have to be this way. This and only then is when I understood my religious teachings from earlier about the divine marriage, about how he is here to provide and protect for her direction and guidance. And this is when I came home and I was in a brand new body, and this body was the thing that I heard and felt more. Whereas when I left, it was my mind, that monkey mind, that you must do, you must this, you must. My mind ran the show. My mind was always telling me everything. When I came home like Eckhart Tolle, just wanting to sit on a bench and feel everything there was to feel. And this mind was not moving until later. And then, I dropped to my knees. This is when I found human design. I was like, okay, well, I know every way to do this, but I'm still dying. Please, like something. And the second line body knows exactly what to do. Well, all of our bodies know exactly what to do, but what happened is I connected to the field and I connected to the energy that is around me that is always trying to support me if I allow it. And so what happened is it showed me what I needed to see to release the pharmacology from my brain to heal the epigenetic structure of my body. And that is nothing that Brandy did. Brandy didn't do that. All that Brandy did was surrendered to the activity that was happening, the intuitive primal knowing of this vessel that I inhabit. And then she showed me her gifts. And then I really knew what smelling was, what feeling was, what the sound of the wind when I could hear it, what it said to me, all of this. I could feel my connection with everything around me. And it was only through surrender. This isn't some mystical experience that only 1 or 2 people have. Everybody, we all, I believe, have access to this. We all just have our own way to it. So anyway, when I asked, I said, okay, well, I thought I knew how to do this. Please show me. The next day, someone uh, came into my email box, my on Facebook, and asked me if I knew about human design. This person I never met before in my life. And I said, no. And he told me about it, and I got very angry. I thought, oh my gosh, there's something out here that teaches us how to do this, and nobody's teaching us how to do this.
Yeah.
As I just paid a couple $100,000 for an education and where nobody even touched this. And so I collected, to prove this to myself, I collected 300 charts before I gave my first reading. I collected, and I have tons of these that had little notes about these people. Like, when I die, sis, and they find my books,
Treasure
they're going to be
hunts.
like, wow. Anyhow,
Wow. That's
so yeah, I could keep going, for a long time, but
please
that's a
do.
lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on so many incredibly touching and deep different parts of your story. And I think the whole, I mean, and this might be a 6-line thing, but the rewriting of the stories, the rewriting of the interpretation of the stories, maybe that's even a Gate 47 thing, but it's just like, I think that's very much where I am now. I mean, I'm 39, so I'm still, a decade away from my Chiron. But I'm noticing the more I'm able to let go of there being that specific meaning or there being that specific reasoning or that, but it's more of just like this, okay, I went through that because there was something on the other side. It was pushing me forward to something else.
Mm.
And of course, people have tragic stories. People have, I don't like to use the word unfair, but it can feel unfair. And I'm doing that in quotation marks for anybody listening. But it's like when I can let go of anything being unfair and
Mhm.
just why not me? Why not part of my story? Why not be able to see that this was so that I could have grace for someone going through that
Mhm.
later down the road, for example, or just to learn to have more grace with myself and my process. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to really rewrite that story and understand that we get to choose. I know that no choice is a big thing in human design, but we get to choose how we see it.
Perception. Perception is our
Exactly.
only choice. Yeah. And it dictates our reality.
Yes, exactly. And it does dictate it because it's like, okay. And I think what I really want to be a little bit like mindful about here, and maybe I would love to hear your take on this. It's like, okay, we can change how we perceive something, but I think a lot of people like to take that notion of changing how we perceive something as, oh, well, if I choose to perceive something like this, then I'll manifest something better,
Mm.
right?
I'd love to talk about that. Yeah.
Please do.
Okay, where do we start here? So, if I choose to see something differently, and we're quoting there again, if I choose to perceive this in a different way, some people call this bypassing. First of all, we get to feel and arrive. So there are steps to this process. And the first step is arrival in where we are and surrender to it, right? So the very first step in perception is, where am I now? And so if I arrive in that I am perceiving this as a victim now here I am from victim. Now I can see where to move to, how to perceive, what else is available for me to see. And when I see something else, one of the tenets of my teaching is see what love sees. Every bit of my teaching boils down to, when you can see what love sees in a situation, you can surrender to it and find your role. And when I say what love sees, we get to train ourselves on that. That's a different topic we can talk about later. But When we can get to what love sees, then we manifest what is designed for us. And when I say manifest, I mean we are a magnet. Scientifically, in quantum physics, your aura is a magnet. Your heart is beating, which creates a magnetic field, which then we know about magnetic fields. They're attracted to one another. When one magnetic field is resonant here, the other one is resonant here, they come together in fractal configurations. Well, when I am perceiving victim, I am vibrating with the frequency of victim. And so my manifestations are that also a victim. When I perceive or vibrate in the frequency of love, the manifestations are of love. And when I say love, what I'm referring to, it sounds so sweet and lovely and sensual. But what I'm really referring to when I say love is just the frequency that matches your natural biological frequency. That's what humans call love. That's it. When we are seen for the way that we are vibrating right now, meaning we can see something vibrating at the same rate that we're vibrating, we call that love. That's it.
Beautiful.
So manifestation, there is something greater in store for a fully defined manifestor, fully defined ego manifestor. I am. And so if there is something out there to get, and I have desire motivation. So if there's something out there that I want, I have every biological ability to get it. But what I know in my quest. I mean, I had my real estate license as a senior in high school. I was the top 20 under 25 real estate agents in Las Vegas, Nevada. I brought business and franchises, and I had 4 children and 6 houses, and I had horses and RVs and ATV. I had everything that we think we should have because that's what I thought I should do. And so I went and I got all of those things, past the butter. But what I've realized is that what is in store for me, this biological design, when I let it be the magnet that it is, the things that are in resonance to my magnet are things that I could never have planned for myself. I could never have even designed this beloved that I get to learn how to be in relationship for the first time. Because once I met human design, I was celibate, single in the desert for 7 years, trying to acclimate this. I had a hole that I dug myself in. This is the first place I've ever been solid and who I've met. And I could never have imagined him. I could have never imagined the place that I live and the things that I get to do. I could never imagine how easy it is to be me. I would never have given this to myself. So what I know is the nature of us being us will manifest, and I'm saying that in air quotes because it's not from the mind. You are already designed to have the life that you want. It's already there. You just got to surrender to the magnet and let yourself be pulled there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful way of explaining it. And it very much resonates with my experience as well. I've gone through, a decade ago, I got my coaching degree and my mindfulness instructor degree. And I'm very grateful that that was part of my journey. And then there was a part of that where there was so much guilt and shame that I was creating in myself and the suffering I was creating but my vision board isn't coming true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like undefined ego over here. It's like, I don't have that willpower to just go fucking do it if that's where it's going to go, but it's like, there was just this really intense period of my life where it's like, I'm doing it wrong
Yeah.
because in that realm of coaching, there was something to do and
Right.
not be. Where the mindfulness training was very much, you just got to be, bitch. And my coaching training was like, you got to do. And so they were very much dualistic towards each other. And so I knew that part. I understood that part, intellectually understood, but I have to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I could not get out of that intellectual part but coaching says do. And then, when I was 34 as well, that's when human design came into my life. Well, you were 34 when you were done with all your kids. That's what you said.
Yeah.
And I had been doing, even though I had almost, that, 8 years of whatever in human, no, or in mindfulness and really understanding this practice. But then human design came and it was just that extra component that I had been missing where it's like, but this is what you're designed to
Yeah.
be, right? There's not a lot to do here. This is
Yeah.
where we can get to be. And then
Yeah.
for me, noticing, okay, that completely open head I have where I do get lost in inspiration all the time and just like, I don't know what's inspiring or what's not inspiring. So I'm just going to jump on everything with my undefined sacral, but it's lit up like a motherfucker. I have like 6 activations in there, and this in my body defined root to solar plexus to throat to ajna. So everything's just like one da 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 going at once. So it was so freeing to then be like, okay, I can give my mind something. Here's a chart. Here's some keynotes. Here's
Mhm.
the gist of things. And now you can let that go. And I think that letting it go part is difficult.
It is because we think we must be right. We think somehow being right is going to make it better. Um, and human design is the raft, not the shore. It is not where you want to stay. It is just the tool to use and then let go of it. And this is what I think uh, uh, this is where some of the other teachings from human design have evolved into, is when these other teachers have applied the mechanics in such a way that they are surrendered and watching the movie, as Ross says. Once you watch the movie, you realize that you can decide how to watch the movie. So, if we're in the movie theater together and I'm watching this movie and I'm seeing this person in the character in the back just have a hard time and I'm relating to that hard time and I'm there with it, or I'm seeing this front row center character just skipping through the woods and I'm relating to this character, that's our choice. That's what creates the story of Brandy or of Jessica, is what it is that you're looking at. What does it make the mind do? What pharmacology does it release to the body? What chemical experience is the body having back into the field again, which then informs the thing that we watch, manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I lost the point. Again, I lost the point. What is going on with that? But
I
I
don't
think
care what the point was. It was beautiful.
cares. But to be able to the raft, not the shore. This is what I wanted to say, the raft, not the shore. Once we can, so it takes bravery, courage, and some self reflection, right? To take it from the mind into the body. Oh, I'm a manifestor. I'm supposed to be Well, actually, you're a manifestor, so you're designed for peace.
Mm-hmm.
Anger, so they allow themselves to be angry and they blame it on the chart. And they say, well, this is my do and this is why it's this way. I'm an asshole. Well, okay, if that's where we want to arrive. And it's not the raft. If you want to stay on the raft, cool. But I'm over there chilling on the shore. I'm over there where the land is solid, where I get more to explore, where I'm not just stuck in this box of selfness. And I believe in Raw. I listened to Raw talk about, it was in one of the generator lectures, and he talked about the deconditioning that's needed in order to get adults into their bodies. He said, that's someone else's mission. It's not mine. Mine is just to inform of the mechanics. And then, and he, as you know, he talks about it's for the children, for the children. The reason he said this is because it does take an act of bravery to address all of the places that we have been taught to do a certain way so that we could survive. We have to reprogram. We get to reprogram our belief system that says that we're not here to survive. We're actually here to be individuals, that our survival has been Thank you, ancestors that have been here before me, that have put in the work of knowing what survival means and of allowing the collective unconscious to now hold what survival means so that I can fucking tap into it like a Mandalorian, traveling through this experience, now knowing what it means to be safe, instead of looking for in my Mandalorian very slowly what is not safe. Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's going on with the fireworks, but they're perfect timing each time. So it's like Zoom is like, oh yeah, point perfect. Let's go.
Oh, but what I guess, the point of all of that is that I do believe, and I haven't yet been able to articulate it, but that we are the creator in we are the creator of our experience um through our perception, not the biology, not even the mythology, right? It's a choose your own adventure story, but even in that choose your own adventure book, there's only a certain amount of stories that are available to you. But your perception, I think, is what dictates, if you were to write your obituary. It's one of the strongest things I do with my clients that I did with myself is to write your obituary. That definitely changes your stories.
Yeah, that sounds like a profound thing to do, to write your own obituary.
This is one of the heretical tools. Not a lot of people can stomach it, but I do. I've processed my children's death so that I can let go of the fear of them being different. I've processed their death over and over again because as a mother, I am instilled in my bones with this need to keep them safe. Well, my need to keep them safe is the thing that fucking stifles them.
Yeah.
They don't need to be safe. I don't need to keep them safe. Only at their first, when they couldn't feed themselves and, that first little time. But to know, at 7 years old that it's no longer time for me. I'm their ally. I get to watch them. It's like a teeter-totter is what it feels like. I just brought them here and kept them alive for 7 years, and then they have been helping me evolve, and then I help them evolve. But to allow them to be individuated means I need to process them not being here anymore. It's such a powerful thing to do. And they have thanked me for it because of how free it makes them.
I can only imagine. Yeah, as you know, I just went through the process of losing my grandfather. And so death has been very alive and real for me in the past, I'd say 2 weeks, where I really noticed that, for me, this whole, the equation of grief seems to be very equated to regret. And at least, again, this is not, I have not articulated this yet, but it's something that's very alive. But I noticed that with my grandfather passing, there was the grief that came was laced with so much more gratitude than sadness. And I believe that is because of the decisions I've made in the past 3 years of actively going to his city to visit him. He was in a home for the past 2 years. And before that, he was alone for, well, what would that be? 4 or 5 years in his apartment because he lost his soulmate and he was a 6'2"
Mm.
emotional manifester. So when he lost his soulmate, he did not want to live anymore. It was very apparent. He just stopped living. And he was a 35, 36 manifester as well. So it's like he's like, I've had all the experiences. I've had everything going on. I've had a great big life. He had an amazing life with this person. And so for me, when I was going through this process of grieving his death, there was just so immensely more gratitude than sadness that was showing up because, well, yeah, I've made all these decisions to be in that relation with him, to put myself aside to go to him and to make dinner for him and to hang out with him. And I mean, it's not like it was at the end, he was just watching the news and was boring AF, you know. It's not like we were having stimulating conversations. I mean, he was just like, I'm done. You know, you
Mhm.
can come and you can hang out. I love that. And he appreciated it. And he was always so grateful. But it was just like, but when I then got the news, it was like, oh, you know, I was happy for him because he was very honest about the fact that he didn't want to live anymore. And I was also happy and grateful for the conversations we had had around that topic. And so when you're talking about, you know, writing your own obituary or even contemplating and kind of sitting with the death of your children. I mean, I am not a mother, so I don't know that role. I'm childless by design, my own design. It's like that was not a role I wanted to have. I knew that from a very young age. Um, it just seems like such an incredibly profound thing to do because then I think, at least what I'm hearing coming out of me from what you said is like, well, in that process, I think you would be able to see the places where regret would become a bigger grief.
Mhm.
Does that make sense at all?
Yes. It does, absolutely. And the regret in I believe regret is those pivotal moments in which you deny your individual expression. Uh, and while processing their death, what this means is, you know, as a mother, when I watched them drive away, the fear that overwhelmed my body of them getting in a car crash and dying right there prevented me from being okay with them getting in a car and driving away. I mean, it's little simple things. And so to free myself, so this is where I would act in a regretful way. No, you can't go with them. At the very first time is when my daughter had a boyfriend, and he had those little, they call them crotch rockets here, those speed motorcycles. And she climbs on the back of this thing and he's like, "Zoom, zoom, zoom," and and I thought that my body was going to crumble and die watching my baby on the back of this thing. I had to. So then I told her she couldn't go anymore. And then we got into such an argument, and I could see myself wanting to stifle her individuality so that I could feel more safe about her life. So unfair. And I didn't, this is what we all do. This is what we've been trained to do as mothers is keep them safe and alive, keep them safe and alive. Well, that means that, you know, right now during this time, the humans that are born, we are not here to stay safe and alive. We are here to live, to be alive. And so this being alive, we're like tearing ourselves away from all of this old paradigm understanding. And to me, regret happens when I let fear overcome my authenticity. And I could see that I would let fear overcome my authenticity over and over and over again in my mothering. And so, of course, I was doing that to them. And I think death is such a beautiful part. I mean, I'm on the cross of incarnation, so I feel like I have some I feel like I straddle two dimensions a little bit. I straddle the dimension of things that have not been here yet and the things that are already here, and the knowing that all of it's fucking fine.
Mhm.
It's all okay. And that it's not scary over here and it's not scary over here. We're just doing two different things. And so uh, you know, I work with people who are afraid of their loved ones that are suicidal and have suicidal ideations. I work with those loved ones to help them bring them around to, okay, let's entertain it. Let's die. What are we going to do? Let's tell this story about dying. You know, and we talk about it like pass the butter because it is like pass the butter. It is, and the grief and these stages of grief that we go through, the bargaining, the anger, the denial, the guilt, the shame, all of that that comes with these stages of grief, I'm not saying that they're not real and they're not tangible and they're not valid. I am saying that. But what I'm saying is they're not scary and they're not things that we shouldn't experience. And they are easily moved through when we arrive at them with authenticity.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm one of those persons who have, loved ones in my life who are suicidal. And that's
Hmm.
just the way it is.
Hmm.
And then I think this was actually when I was doing my mindfulness education, a part of that was a quiet retreat where we were doing all kinds of different things and stuff. And we were in meditation for, I don't know, forever, it felt like. And
Hmm.
it just dawned on me, I am not afraid of them committing suicide. I'm afraid of being the friend left, being the friend that has that person. Oh, that's the friend of the person that committed suicide. It was only egotistical. There was nothing to do with that person. It was my fear of how I would be judged, how I would be seen. And it was such a relieving experience where it was just like, oh, I don't have to take on that responsibility of making sure that they're alive because I'm taking on that responsibility to make sure they're alive so that I will feel better. What the fuck is that shit?
That's powerful.
It was really intense and it was exactly what I needed. I'm so grateful for that experience because since then, my and my best friend doesn't mind me sharing this. She is one of the people who is suicidal in my life, and she had a mother who committed suicide
Hmm.
just 6 years ago. And so since then I've had that experience of being able to sit with not only a person who is suicidal, but also having that experience of a mother who did commit suicide.
Hmm.
And I think when we can understand that death is that's the only thing we all have in common. We're all going to die. It's just it's the way it is. It's kind of like you said with pass the butter. It's just that we're all going to fucking die, okay? I'm sorry. I'm
We're marching there right now.
Yeah,
We're marching. We're on the way, guys.
exactly. We are. But of course, this fear of being left behind and being able to see that, straight in the eyes and just go into that void of knowing that that is a fear I have. There is this intense need to not be that person that had a friend commit, whatever it was. But being able to really see the beauty of, you know, my friend or my best friend who really is actively up and down when it comes to not wanting to live anymore. It's
Mhm.
like, that's okay. That's your
Yeah.
trip.
Hmm.
I really, for my own sake and for my own being, I really want you to be here because I enjoy your company. I love hanging out with you. I love the, memories and the life that we've created together as friends. And so I can hope that you would come to me. I would hope that I could somehow, be here and sit with you in situations. But if that's a choice that person makes, then it's like, okay.
Yeah. We get to unshame it and we get to um we get to allow the experience. And what I found most often in allowing the experience is that it's not a wanting to die. It is a revamping of how to live. It's always a backwards mirror, I call it. It's this thing that's showing itself to you. You think it's this. It's not that. It's what's behind that that's really asking for attention. And so when we get afraid of death, we're not afraid of death. We're just afraid of not living. And the time being up and we haven't lived because we know we're not living. And whatever living means for anybody, it just means, I think, alignment to the biological structure you were born with. It doesn't mean skydiving or bucket lists or any of that bullshit. It doesn't mean any of those things.
Yeah.
It just means authentically expressing the movement of energy through your biology. And when we sit with the people that do want to have the experience of death, it is most often, I find, a boredom with life, boredom. And some people say it'll be fear or sadness or whatever, but it boils down to boredom. We get bored of being sad after a while. We get bored of being this or that or the other. And I don't know if maybe I shouldn't even mention this because I don't know this to be true in, my scientific journaling, but I do believe that there's an aspect of 35-36 with this. There is an aspect of it is just another experience of being human. It is another thing that we can do. And so we get to arrive in the not shaming of it. We get to arrive in the, okay, it's it's time to we want to die. Okay. Well, let's make this plan. Like we would have made the plan to live. Let's make this plan to die. And let's do it like, I know our natural inclination is I hope I could be there for you through it. Well, I hope you fucking invite me to your party. Can I be invited to that party? Like, let's switch I hope you call me to be with you. No, fuck that. I will bring the balloons. I will sing the goddamn song as you're crossing over. I will sit there and sing until you're out of your body because let's do this.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful reframe of it. I really, really, I'll bring the balloons.
I'll bring the balloons. I'll sing the songs. Let's party. How do you want this to go down?
Yeah.
And most often it turns into this funny joke. And I remember the very first time I did this, I threw a death party for someone, and I was very afraid that it was going to backfire. My psychological degrees were telling me not to do this.
Mhm.
We ended up in a laughing pile of tears because she realized she wanted to approach everything like that. Like it was this party, this thing that was happening. And because she wasn't doing that in her life, she thought that that meant it was the end and she must die. So at this death party, she had a part. She's like, oh, well, I'm going to change my mind, guys. Oh, I'm calling myself back in and I'm going to try to do this in life. And let's see if I want to live now.
I love that because it is a beautiful reframe of not wanting to live could definitely be about the way you're living.
That's right. That's what it usually seems to be. Because most biological entities, if we take, the humanness out of us, a thing that is biological is going to continue to be biological until that thing is done, until the process of growth is finished. The trees, the ants, the clouds, the universe, the planets, everything does this. Yeah. So we are just here to allow the growth to be done until it's done.
Mm.
And then
This conversation took a completely different turn than I ever thought it would, and I love it. I'll be sure to put up some warnings and trigger warnings for people who are sensitive to these subjects, but I think it's really important that we went here because I think this is I was just reading not too long ago how here in Norway, where I'm based, last year we had more suicides than any previous years or something like that. I'm really good at hyperbolic, but it was a lot.
yeah.
And a lot of them were men, and how this world that we're in right now with being politically correct, like what we did right now is not being politically correct when it comes to the topic of suicide.
Right.
And I think it's really important that, of course, there are nuances that need to be in place when it comes to the whole political correctness. But I think when we can just really charge into an emotion or really just look at it with this reframed mind, right? And just like you said, okay, you want to die? I'll bring the fucking balloons. Let's sing the song. Let's go there. I'm going to support you in doing that because that's what you think is the best for you. And I'm not here to tell you what's best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I'm looking at these suicide rates and noticing that a lot of them are men, that, you know, they're just feeling so disempowered, and that the world we live in right now is it's hard for them to speak up. It's hard for them to say their truth. It's hard for them to, and this is goes for any, you know, gender and all that stuff. But just when I was reading here in Norway, it was like, okay, we really need to focus on men's mental health and allowing them to live the life that feels right for them, that political correctness might not enjoy, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was just,
I could be so incredibly politically incorrect some more if ever you
Mhm.
want to here, because it is just men's health. So the reason that we want to help in these suicide rates is because we still are stigmatizing wanting to die. What if it is just time for and I know this is so incorrect, politically incorrect, and I am not insensitive. I'm just saying, let's maybe try this on and see what it feels like to imagine that it is in the trajectory and purpose. Imagine that it is part of this energy that animates all of our bodies, that it breathes. Imagine this energy that animates humanity is proliferating. Oh, it's in the out breath. And then it comes in the in-breath. And now, so this energy that had been proliferating and had been creating and creating and creating is now time. It's an in-breath time. So now it's time to bring back the edges. Now it's time to get a little bit smaller. Everything does this. If you look at the growth of the algae in the sea, it goes. Everything does this. Everything, every species in humanity has done this and learned to adapt. We are not in humanity, in the cosmos. We as humanity are just learning this.
Mm.
We have had this idea that we must continue to proliferate. We must continue to be alive, and we must continue to be alive and spread. Well, you and many other people have had this idea or this movement in your body that probably wouldn't have been had 100 years ago, where you said being a mother is not for me.
Mm.
Well, 100 years ago, the women in the world had coursing through their body expand and proliferate. Well, you are one of the new humans that doesn't have that in her body. So you are not expanding and proliferating. You are being and resourcing what's around you. That is the time for us right now. This is what humans are learning to do, is instead of stay safe, take over, proliferate, we are now learning to who and where are our resources and how can we be symbiotic with them. What does this have to do with suicide? Because we as humanity have have something else that's coursing through our veins right now, and it's not stay alive, stay alive. So the typical model that we have says, if you don't want to stay alive, something is wrong with you. I want to erase that, because the model is now saying, be alive or don't be alive. This is part of the human process, but it's not about collapsing the wave function of stay alive and make bigger. We are now moving in the other direction. And not just human design, but many other cultural modalities talks about a making smaller of the human population to be able to be symbiotic with our environment, with our planet that we live on. Imagine if the pine trees were human. This would be a whole fucking planet of pine trees. It would be I mean, that's a lot. There's too many humans here. And I'm not saying that it's appropriate, or, I do have compassion for, the wife who has lost her husband in Norway to suicide. And I have compassion for her ideas that say that it was wrong and bad and shameful for that to happen. And I have compassion for her children and the experience that they have moving forward. But who the fuck would they be without that thought? What if we could plant in their minds that it is okay that that happened? And what if we can give them the story and the continued life story that they did not do anything bad, wrong, and shameful, and that that is not in their lineage, but in fact, it was at the leading edge of human creation and evolution. And what if that was their story? Then what kind of life could they live? So I'm not trying to be incompassionate. I'm just trying to show that there's another way to story this in a way that is empowering for us all.
I'm just going to let that
It's,
sit there.
yeah. I think what we're doing as humans in form over and over again from the beginning of time to whenever this ends is just telling the story in the way that the creator, in the way that empowers forward movement. So, like these ancient, heretic or things that we get passed down in our family, like for me and the women in my family, was codependence. I think that there is a story to tell about codependence all the way from the shadow into the gift, into the city, into this whole spectrum of consciousness of what codependence means. And Brandy has a piece of that story to move it forward. And so I just think that that's all what we're doing is telling and retelling the same story over and over again to bring it into its higher spectrum of consciousness. And so when our brilliant, beautiful men look out in the world around them and see and feel as if their purpose may be better spent outside of biology, I support you. I uplift you. I will throw a party and play the music on your transition. Um, Because there's a fundamental truth that this energy does not die, it just changes form. The energy that animates this meat suit has never died. It only has changed form. And so when we identify as the energy inside the body, not the brandy, the story, the neurology that's been told because of its coming together, I identify with this energy that animates this suit. And so there's no death, there's only experience.
That's absolutely beautiful and so impactful. I can feel my own story changing from listening to you. Yeah.
I want to empower, and getting to the roots of empowerment means we're not afraid of death. When we're not afraid of death, we can live fully. And I know that's cliched and played out, but this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I'm a dormant 28 in my Pluto placement, so fear of death is my daily breakfast. It's
Yeah,
it's just there always. And I think
that's funny. I'm
it is.
57 in Pluto, so we come together there.
There you go. Yes.
Mm,
Oh, well, look at that. Yeah, I haven't looked at your planets. I'm just looking at your chart.
yeah.
Um, I think it's, when I look back on a lot of the experiences that I've said no to because of this fear of death,
Mhm.
there is a grieving process to that regret, right? And being like, oh, but I did that because why? I mean, I really was in the mood to do that. I really felt like going and doing that. I really wanted to do that. But then this intense fear of safety or risk or something's not going to go right or is it really worth the risk? And it's just like, no, it's not worth it. And then I stifle myself from having the experience.
It's a little death. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're looking at it as above and so below, the micro and the macro, you just killed yourself in that moment.
Yeah, my mind is like, which is always the what happens when I have defined head people on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's just like the pressure to think.
And I love that 57. I love what you brought up. You just impacted me in an epiphany that I might not have had before. 57 is not only my Pluto, but it is my authority. It is what feeds my authority. And so what I just gleaned from what you just said is that I had to die to fear to be able to hear 57, to be able to get clarity. I have to kill my fear over and over and over. And how I kill my fear is arriving in it and choosing to see something different. And that is my authority. That's been my process, is to die over and over and over again in order to know what is right.
Mm. Mm. I
Thank you
just,
for that epiphany.
oh, thank you. I've got so much to sit with. I think that just looking at your chart, there's a couple of things that I would love to ask about just to start wrapping up this conversation. But because you talked a lot about this intellectual process that you went through of, getting all these degrees, understanding all these sciences and academia, but not getting into the body, but just being in the head. And I'm just noticing, well, you have a, highly defined head and ajna cut off
Hmm.
from the rest of the body. And do you feel that that's played a role?
Hmm.
Or, yeah.
Yes, it has played such a beautiful role. This body is a completely different entity. This is how I talk about this divine marriage. They had to learn each other. And there's stories of in my younger years of complete removal of the mind from the body through abuse in this body being terribly abused in all kinds of ways. And I met some nuns that helped me use my mind to pull myself out of the body. They called it going to the void. And this is how I survived a lot of the physical abuse of my childhood, was through going to the void. What they taught me, pulling the energy out of my body and watching. They would teach me how to see what love sees. They would teach me how to see my abusers in their pain. But I had to be out of my body because my body was being used. And so my brain was watching and understanding and seeing patterns and all kinds of things. So that led to, again, the complete denial of this body as I got older. And so I believe that lupus and this work that I did with Dr. Joe was the process of putting the energy back into the body. And now this body is the thing that moves me. And this brain, as powerful as it is, has no business in the movement. And that has just been a process of fucking around and finding out. And what I know to be true is that when my brain, when he sees a better way to protect us, he will reorganize everything in order to follow that way. I don't have to do anything except for hold the truth of what she knows. And then he will reorganize whatever needs to be reorganized as long as I can stay with her because he wants to provide and protect for her, right? That's the way that our brains are designed. This is why we run the same programs we run, is because he believes that that's the safest thing. But I know through this process of fucking around and finding out that when he sees there's a better way, he will do all the work to reorganize himself. And so I just get to, Brandy is almost this like third thing. Like I'm the watcher of this thing that happens. Um, But the process of allowing this body to exist is the process of falling back in love with her. She is, to allow her to exist is to kiss her every day. I kiss her more than I kiss anything. I wake up and I say good morning and I, speak to my toes and my heels and my shins and my calves and my knees and my thighs and my thank you, good morning, thank you, good morning, thank you, good morning, wait, good morning. How would I like to be kissed by my beloved in the morning? Just like that. So like just good morning but just always creating a relationship with the two of them, understanding that he always wants food, that he always needs a little something to make him feel safe because he's a little scared all the time. And this is when we can understand this is going on in our body, we can understand the patriarchy that's going on around us. When we fall into that love of all of this, we can see how it plays on the outside. Gosh, I went everywhere in that conversation. But what I know to be true is this body. If you're looking at my design, and it might be available to see on the podcast somewhere, but what you'll see is my body is where the power is, and it's almost all unconscious.
Yes,
So
it
it's not
is.
even something I can do if I wanted to.
Mhm.
It's just something that I watch happen and feel grateful and in awe and shock that I'm the one that gets to be this thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think we all, at least I hope that for people that come to human design, that they do get some sense of awe of, oh, I get to do this, you know,
Hmm.
this is the thing that I was born to express, and I don't actually have a choice in that. It's just this thing, and it's beautiful.
And it's been what I've wanted to do. It's articulated who I be in ways that I didn't have language for.
Oh,
And it's helps me teach people how to love me and why I'm important. I didn't think I was important. I thought I was just some bull in the china shop that nobody wanted to listen to. This taught me how and showed me why I'm important.
mm, yes. Oh, there's so many more things I could talk to you about. I could talk to you for hours. I just feel like we've come to a beautiful end here.
We have.
And if I'm going to go off on a different tangent, I feel like it's going to ruin the depth of where we landed right now.
Well,
But
it's a perfect
yeah, do you have something that's just burning on your chest and you want to get out? Something you want to close with?
Yeah, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your impact. That's what's burning. Thank you for your questions and your space holding and your view. You are bringing together people who, in you, with your manifestor outer authority, have inspired you. Without fear of what other people are going to think. I mean, look at us. Look at what we freaking talked about today. You could get judged a lot, but you're doing it because you're inspired. And that's the beauty of your design. So I just want to thank you for being you and for asking these lovely questions.
Thank you so much, Brandy. This was amazing. And so, if anybody listening would like to follow you or would like to work with you, where can they find you and what are things that you offer?
Yay. I am building with my beloved Richard Corbett a new site called emergebydesign.net. And in this Emerge by Design, we wish to show you how the mind and the body, the yin and the yang, come together, and how we're not one or the other. We are a combination and an in-breath and out-breath of both of them. And this is how we integrate is we learn and then we practice and we learn and we practice. And so this ecosystem that he and I are creating will be a place where this can take place, where you can learn about human design and the gene keys and astrology and the transits and how it all plays mentally and intellectually. And then you can also take that into the workshops that I offer and bring it into our body and into practice. And I teach things like teaching people how to love you and neurolinguistic programming and using our words to really tell the story in a way that helps us fit into the world around us instead of using our design to protect us like cages. So emergebydesign.net, you will find all of my offerings. I do offer the one thing that I'm doing right now is a Wisdom Keeper program. And this is for community leaders, people who are introducing their communities to human design. My wish is to help these people learn how to hold space for the embodiment, not just the education. Because it's wonderful when we come into our communities and we tell all of our loved ones about their design, but then what? There becomes almost a responsibility to help bring it into the body. And it's not hard. And it's just, I call it mirroring their magnificence. So I like to teach, ooh, there it goes again. I like to teach community leaders how to hold space and mirror the magnificence of their community members. And that's called the Wisdom Keeper program. On the website, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Brandy Wisdom Keeper.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Awesome. I will put all the links in the show notes so that people can easily find you.
Thank you. Thank you. And DM me because I probably won't pay attention to many other things. It's just the way it goes.
This is where I'm available. Okay, bitches. Thank you.
Yeah. Please just send me a message if you're burning hot to work with me and we'll figure it out.
Love it. Oh, Brandy, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and sharing all your wisdom. It was incredibly fun and enlightening to have you on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Bantering with another manifestor, 6-2 manifestor, is lovely. And we can arrive in places very quickly that feel like home. So thank you, Jessica.
Hmm.